Welcome to another in our series of Vision Quest Journeys, stories from the people's residence. And tonight we're focusing on a story of the people's residence playing an intriguing role in a major neighborhood redevelopment here in the corner of Bloor and Bathurst Street in Toronto. Those of you who can picture that corner know that across the street for many years, starting back in the late 1940s, we had the biggest discount store in the world, or what Honest Ed Mervish used to say, the biggest community market in the world. Because many of you will know about Honest Ed's. This amazing, unusual, distinctive retailer who created a village within a city, Mervish Village, growing from a small woman's clothing shop to be this gigantic retail store that had pieced together a whole lot of buildings and houses. It was not a big modern building, but he turned it into like a marquee theater with signs that had thousands of light bulbs on it and wonderful slogans. He was an amazing...
Don't stand there, why don't you just come on in?
That's right, and come on in and get lost.
That's right.
You know, the only thing crooked is our floors.
That's right.
You know, we're for the Honest Ed's is for the birds.
That's
our
right.
price is cheap, cheap, cheap.
And it says it's very nuts.
And so he pioneered a way, and remember, it's just after the recession and the war, and with immigrants pouring in, and he found a way to sell people clothes and household goods at a low price by being very careful in buying up things that big retailers in the States had left at the end of the year. But he also gave people the opportunity to buy things on time. They didn't have to have all the money at one time. But on top of his skills as a retailer, he was a community builder. He employed old people. He employed disabled people. He built a real reputation for being Honest Ed's. And he had gimmicks that made it a fun place. And he had giveaways. And he had his big turkey giveaways at Christmas that gave many families a real opportunity.
Block parties.
And then he started celebrating his own birthday with block parties in the streets. So Honest Ed's became an iconic institution. And for an old guy like me, I knew it most through the many African students that I was helping bring to Canada through the African Students Foundation. They and many of their immigrant friends relied on Honest Ed's to allow them to get by with the money they had. Ed Mervish died 2007, I guess it was.
It feels like yesterday, but it's about that.
And in 2016, the business closed. And the question is, what are you going to do with this? Well, we're going to tear down this old iconic block where his wife had convinced him. I had forgotten to mention that when they had all the houses on Markham Street, she convinced him to rent them to artists. So he created
below
an
market rate rent.
That's right.
That's right. Below market rate. Really important to say that.
In the middle of the city.
That's right.
So now what's going to replace it? It's now a big hole in the ground with a developer called West Bank from the West Coast, BC, doing one of its big new projects in Toronto. Ellis Dawn, whom we've talked about in the series before, being the contractor. and they're trying to build something special in downtown Toronto. And they're speaking to the community about what does the community want besides retail shops and condos. And that brings us to the role of the people's residents in the new development. So give us a little update on what's happening.
The beautiful thing about all of this is you're talking, two things flash into my imagination. Maybe it's in recent time, but when I was a member of the Mervish BIA, right? Business Improvement Association, what I noted going to the meetings early in the morning that the day opened up with a calypso that was written about Honest Ed's. So Caribbean music and culture started the day. Shop at Honest Ed's, something, 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 shop at Honest Ed's. And then that really struck me like, whoa. And every time that I would go to the meeting, the day would start as they opened up the doors with a calypso that was written for Honest Ed's. But before that, I want to go back though to the lines of people that came in the morning before the doors were open. Those lines were endless. But in those lines were women, a lot of men too, but largely women. Women from the Caribbean, from Guyana, and different places, Guyana, South America, oh my gosh, Guyanese, okay, excuse me for that. But what these women represent, they were the barrel packers. A lot of those women too would have been women who during wartime went into factories and spaces and worked as packers. But here they were now new packers. These were packers who were going to shop at Honest Ed's to pack the barrels, to send food stuff and all kinds of things to the family back home. And every single morning you would see people, and then you would see the diversity of the line change. You would see probably more Chinese or Asian people in the line, but always what you were conscious of, women. Tiny women. Sometimes you would see women carry a sack of rice almost bent over. And you're thinking as you watch that, oh my gosh, how many people will that feed? What country is that sack of rice going to? So these are the people that I salute and I celebrate. I never see the gentrification or the development. I never see the big hole. I have not seen this big hole. This is what I see when I see the development that is taking place. I see the new people's residence. I see the future. At 777 Bathurst Street, a different bookless cultural center, it is a place where the past, the present, and the future meets. We talked earlier on about the Walk with Excellence. We brought the past of the greatness of people and of a community. We spoke about it in the present context. But while we were walking with students, we were also part of the fuel of the future. Back to the people's residence. That's what we are in a nutshell. A place where you can experience history, a place where you can be in history at the same time. And you know that whatever is happening is propelling the future. So with the development, I never see that thing as a big hole. Every day I look at the development, I think this is the future home, the permanent home of a destination that will be called the people's residence. A people where people can be nostalgic, but people have the ability at the same time to make history, whether it's in a program, whether it's having dinner with someone in a particular sector and finding out what is it that engages you, or whether it is something that will uplift youth creativity and expression. So because of that thinking that we never see the big hole, right? Because sometimes when you see a big hole, you think you're going to fall in. When we look at the development, we are thinking, what kind of foundation can we create around this development of the people's residence? And then suddenly, Kathy Grant, who is a member here of the People's Residence and one of our curators, she came up with this time capsule idea. If truth be told, Dawn, I just looked at that little bottle at that point in time and I thought this is going to be a very painstaking thing to do time capsules with kids. But because it was an idea that came from the people, we ran with this thing. And we saw the excitement and joy making time capsules with students. We saw the excitement it brought. And then one day, a student said, if I leave my time capsule here with you, what are you going to do with it? Because, you know, kids call you up with stuff like, hey, you've got an idea about something? Why are you doing that? And suddenly looking at this kid, was like, oh my God, now what are we going to do with these time capsules? Probably going to throw them away some years later. And suddenly, back to story. I remember the story of someone who probably will remain nameless right now, who one night phoned another fellow storyteller and said, my husband's ashes, I want to put them under the ground of this very important building in the city. Could you come and help me? And the friend said, oh my God, what a story that would be. And so that person and that woman went to this particular place, and she got him to throw her husband's ashes and place them in the construction of this place. I remembered that story. So I turned to the kid as I looked through, not the big hole, as I looked through the space where I could see the new building that we are going to move to. And I said, we are going to bury the time capsules under the foundation of this development. And the kid said, why would you want to do that? And I said, because you will have bragging rights. And every time that you pass here, you will tell people, you know, I'm under there holding that big building up. Whoa, in that moment saying that, you could just see the thinking being elevated with children. And so as people came in, we would say, young, old, whoever, from walks of life, would you like to make a time capsule? And people would say, yes, what do we do? You write your name.
I did mine.
You did yours. You write the name of the people that inspired you in history, and you put the date on it. Now, when we opened some of the bottles, they were like testimonials. And there's one particular woman, and this was read at the time capsule ceremony. She said, my parents came from Jamaica, and she named their names, and they worked hard, and I am proud of what they have accomplished. Whoa! So 100 years from 2019, or 200 years from 2019, when that property, the new West Bank development, is being excavated, people are going to find 1,000 names of Canadians at the intersection of Bathurst and Bloor, and they will call our names again into history. What an incredible thing that is. Now, when people hear about developers and things like that, people get scary because these people are like scary people. They're not human beings, but they're just titles. And so when we said to the construction crew, because you always start with the people, you don't start with the other people, you start with the people. And so we went to the people, the construction crew, and we said to them, you know what, we got this dream that we're going to jump over the wall and the fence in the middle of the night, and we're going to go and bury these time capsules down there. We could hear the cops, the sirens coming, and we already got the plan worked out that we're going to stand on each other's shoulders and, you know, all of this. And they said, you don't have to do that. Why don't you have a ceremony with us? Let's include the construction workers, and we could drop that. So you start on the ground floor with the people. And so the idea then mushroomed and snowballed. And we had this incredible time capsule ceremony, which attracted the lights of the Albert Jackson family. I said we are a place of history. Well, it came live on that day. It attracted people, again, who were seniors, who had made incredible history, not just at Bathurst and Bloor, but right across Canada. It attracted a school of students from the Alpha Alternative School in all their diversity. But get this, they too were some of the first students to make the time capsules. So we're coming around at it again, huh? And we attracted people from all walks of life and all cultures, all caught up in this moment, a moment that says, you have bragging rights to say that your name is holding up, or your presence is holding up a development. You have the opportunity to be recognized somewhere in history. And then suddenly the construction workers came back and they said another thing. You know what? We can build a box. Because we think, yeah, this is going to be good. And we begin to have other thoughts now, futuristic thoughts. Is it going to be environmentally friendly? Oh, well, the bottles are glass. They got rubber corks, and now they're going to put them in a wooden box. Ooh, how sweet is that? Now, here's how the collaboration is. And then the construction worker says, do you realize that this is 12 stories down in the ground? Oh, my God, I didn't imagine that. We're thinking that we were going to scale the wall and just throw the bottles in, and boom, the other cops would have locked us up a long time ago. We would still be in jail. But they were so excited to do all of this, that these two men came and took that box, and here is this, and they created, what did they call it? A waiting platform, a surveillance platform or something like that. They had all that language. But to see engineers, to see people take the time out of the day in a project like that, coming together with community in all its diversity to mark a moment of history. So on the television clip, which was interesting, I appeared as one of the engineers with the construction company, and the construction spokesperson appeared as me. Another great moment in history. I go down blazing with a whole new title, right? But my point is this: how often do we get to respond to gentrification in creative ways? And how often do we get to mark our names on history's page? Old timers will tell you this: if your name is buried or your navel string is buried in a particular place, then that's your sense of belonging. That's your sense of claiming. We were excited that the Haitian consulate is on Bathurst Street, and that the honorary consul general could come and talk not only about the mighty nation of Haiti, but that the Haitian presence was on Bathurst Street. We were excited that Josephine Mandanin, the water walker, is part of the history of the People's Residence. And we knew that she would be smiling at this moment to think that we were so courageous and creative and fearless to place our names on her land and on native territory. What a great day it was to think that a simple idea, which came from one person, mushroomed into all these things.
I'm really pleased with the way in which you've captured that day, because this was another gift you gave me to invite me to be here. I didn't know what to expect. I found about 300 people from the community here, at least 50 of them young students. Mm-hmm. You had some wonderful brief presentations. That community man that talked to the students about their story, that they all had a story in them.
That's right.
He engaged those students.
Yes, Dan Yashinsky. Yes.
And so when you and I were in Harlem a month ago at the Schomburg Center for Black Culture, there they were with a big new exhibit on Renaissance in a neighborhood, gentrification. And they got fascinated to hear what was happening here in Toronto. So it was wonderful to be part of that experience. I thank the head people both from West Bank and from Ellis Don for having the wisdom to realize how important it was to celebrate. And they were genuinely involved.
I believe they were, yes.
So,
yes.
You know, you talked when we were doing the context, you said visions may initially start from an individual, but our vision journey is trying to feature stories where the individual joins with others and a collaborative effort takes place where they get a chance to work together in shaping their future. And this time capsule experience was a beautiful example of that.
And I want to say one more thing. The other thing that was really sweet about that nugget was this. It was the very last day of Asian Month in the city. In the Caribbean Roti Palace, there were our neighbors for how many years? Over 20 years.
And they fed us.
They fed us with doubles.
Yes.
Look at that. And they could have fed us with roti, but they came with doubles, which tells us in some ways in story that 2 plus 2 can add up. 1 plus 1 is 2, doubles. And if we have that thinking of adding together, how powerful this people's residence
folks,
will be.
You've got another insight into this wonderful, big visionary dreamer. And you're going to hear us talking often about dreams. And I think I'll close with a quote that I've remembered often from T.E. Lawrence, who talked about Everyone dreams, but not equally. Those who dream in the night, in the dusty recesses of their minds, wake in the day, often to find that it was just vanity. But the dreamers of the day are the dangerous people, because they, with open eyes, turn their dreams into action. And Ita Sadhu from the People's Residence, 777 Bathurst Street at Bloor in Toronto, is one of those big dreamers of the day, and I'm so proud to be your friend and colleague.
You know what? I love that. And one thing I'm going to say, and this is what my grandmother always said after the invention of color television: "Girl, don't dream in black and white no more. Eh? Dream in color." So I
Thank you.
dream in color.
Good night.